All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is an open meeting of the Seward, Nebraska governing body. The city of Seward abides by the Nebraska Open Meetings Act in conducting business. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is displayed on the north wall of this meeting room facility as required. Disclosure of meeting recording processes is posted in the meeting room. Any citizen may address the council regarding items included on the meeting agenda and are asked to complete and submit a speaker card to the clerk prior to the meeting. The mayor will call speakers to the podium when the item is being considered. Presenters shall approach the podium, state your name and address for the clerk's record, and are asked to limit remarks to 5 minutes. All remarks shall be directed to the mayor, who shall determine by whom any appropriate response shall be made. The city of Seward reserves the right to adjust the order of items on this agenda if necessary, and may elect to take action on any of the items listed. Please call the roll.
Kaler.
Here.
Colterman.
Here.
Streisand.
Here.
Tanyas.
Here.
Singleton.
Here.
Horgan.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Franciscato.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
All right, thank you. First three items for tonight's agenda make up the consent agenda.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor: Franciscato, Kaler, Tanyas, Colterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Horgan. 8-0.
All right, under administrative items, item number 1 is discussion and consideration of stop sign placements at the following 2nd Street intersections: Seward Street, Roberts Street, and Hillcrest Drive.
Yes, as we noted a few weeks back, we would have a discussion about the stop signs. As you may be aware, after we had our discussion about the painted lines and parking on 2nd Street, that we were given the okay the very next day by NDOT that they'd get out there, and now it's gone. So we can work quickly when we need to. Part of that discussion, it was brought up that we need to make some considerations, and we would monitor and see what people's thoughts and feelings were about the stop signs, because prior to even our last meeting, we'd already started receiving, I don't know what comments or things that you'd received constituents, but we'd received at the administration a few emails requesting that some of those stop signs remain permanently. So tonight we've given you a vehicle to do that, which is the resolution. We can, basically, if we decide to leave it as it was before all the construction, we'll just kill the resolution or not introduce it if nobody wants to, and we'll move on. If we want to have a discussion about any of the intersections, I know Councilmember Kaler had brought up the intersection with 2nd Street and Hillcrest. And so the vehicle right now does continue to a 4-way stop at Hillcrest. If we'd like to add any of the other ones to that, they're discussed in the agenda, we can just amend and add to by an amendment, and then we could add those as well. So that's kind of the procedure tonight. Again, the city has received comment, I'd probably say from 3 or 4 emails and things like that just said we'd like to see the Hillcrest one saved. Traffic committee wasn't able to get together specifically on it, but we do have most of the members, and so Mike is here, Chief Peters, if you have questions for them or if they want to speak up as part of the conversation. I think the biggest ones, and obviously Councilmember Kaler can speak to her items, the biggest one we considered was just kind of monitoring the intersection and me personally going through it. There's just a lot of traffic in the mornings, especially before school at that intersection of 2nd and Hillcrest. You see a lot of the school bus traffic for the public school system moving back and forth through there. And then you see a lot of traffic for St. John's moving through there because most of their drop-offs go down through 2nd Street, through the back, and then out back on the Hillcrest. And then there's a lot of pedestrians at that time. Lots of school children and even Concordia students and faculty walk down Hillcrest and come through those different intersections as they head off for their day. So probably one of the more trafficked, both traffic and pedestrian ones that we see versus Seward in 2nd and Roberts in 2nd. So that's everything that kind of flowed into the administrative side. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions at the moment for us? If not, we can turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, Zane?
Great, just a point of clarification, is that four-way stops on Moffett and Second, not Robertson Second?
Oh, yeah, should be Moffett.
Yes.
My mistake. I'm sorry.
No problem, I caught
No, we
that.
caught it.
And we didn't hear anything about them. I didn't receive any comments except they'd like to see it go at Moffett. Some offhand comments, not direct emails and things like that. So,
Yeah, just like what I said last time, I think it's just from a safety perspective, there's just a lot of traffic around the school over there. And I mean, maybe even if anybody else can speak to it, I missed the big snow this last week, but, with, that hill going down there with that stop up at the stop sign, is it icy with all the snow or anything like that? I know that was kind of a run through sometimes on that area, that stop sign going down that hill, so didn't know if that was a factor at all. It ever has been,
that'd
but.
probably be for, if anybody, Chief Peters. I don't know that we had any specific issues with the most recent weather event over there.
Any typical issues with any ice or snow on that? Okay.
I don't think, from administration standpoint, I don't think we have a preference. In some ways, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's just, you have to pick your favorite arbitrary, intersection. And so, again, as Greg spelled out, you have the options of a resolution that addresses one or multiple intersections, or do nothing, and then we just revert back to the way it was. Of course, we always are monitoring intersections. The chief knows that if something seems to be problematic, he would bring it to our attention at the administration level, and we could bring that back to the council at that time. So you pretty much have the run of it, you run the gamut on this as far as what you wanna do or not do. Chief, did you have anything to add on any of those intersections as far as reports or close calls or anything like, I realize it's all anecdotal, but.
Not that I'm aware of. Obviously, I certainly understand the concern around the schools. But I can't identify a specific issue that we've had either before we had the stop signs in place or really since.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Anyone else wish to speak on this item?
I just think the comments that I've received were basically on the two highest traffic was Hillcrest and Seward Street, on how control those intersections and the flow, let alone the speed of, perceived speed that people have seen, observed, that helps break that down and slows down the speed of the traffic around those two intersections with the number of traffic that flows around it. As far as Moffett, I would like to see it go, but that's my personal preference.
Mike, I don't wanna put you on the spot here, but, as from an engineering standpoint, I know we have different roads are designated for different purposes, like, on some streets, you don't want any stops or very few stops because it's arterial and you wanna keep traffic moving. In other instances, you may want stops or more stops. So from an engineering standpoint, do you have any opinion on the proposed intersections?
Specifically Hillcrest and Second Street.
Well, any of these, but yeah,
I think to keep all the stop signs that were installed for the bypass in place, keep them all, is probably excessive, and I would recommend that we remove. And so I think just hearing the feedback, just from an engineering standpoint, I think the stop sign at Hillcrest and Second is a good idea to remain, right, at Hillcrest, for that purpose. And I would advocate removing it at Seward as well as at Moffett. We've already removed the stop sign at Pine Street, right, on Pinewood itself. So I think that's, will provide a little bit of additional traffic control. We can always go back and reinstall stop sign at Seward Street if we think we miss it and it actually helps significantly. We have tried to keep Seward Street open from Columbia into all the way, I think, to the highway. seems like that was a good decision that they made decades ago. I would advocate reopening Seward, removing that stop sign at Seward.
Yeah, Rich?
I'd like to add that, prior to this, I guess I wanna make sure it's clear to everybody that we're not talking about removing all the stop signs. We're talking about the four-way stop. On Seward Street, for instance, there's a stop sign at Columbia, and then 2 blocks away is Second Street, so people would have to go 2 blocks, stop again, and then go on in downtown. I don't think that's really necessary there, but I know the stop sign facing Second Street has always been there. So the Second Street stop sign, as well as the Second Street stop sign at Moffett, has always been there. So the stopping of traffic on Moffett going through, I can't see any reason that that's necessary anymore. So I think for that reason, those two could be revert back to the previous.
And I think that was the intent was to not eliminate all 4
Correct.
stops,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
the ones that were added for the bypass
Bypass.
purpose. I think that was always the intent, it's just whether, you feel a 4-way stop is necessary to remain, but, yeah. Did St. John ever comment on any of this?
We didn't get an official one.
Okay. I didn't know if they had concerns. I know like in the mornings, they have people out there, crossing guards, trying to make sure, like in Columbia. I don't know if they do it anywhere else, but that's the only one I noticed, cause that's where I drive. So I do know they do make extra effort and, but again, kids don't have to cross there. I assume kids will cross wherever they want.
Plus, Moffett and Seward Street, you're not going speeds very excessive anyway, because the bricks slow you down anyway.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
The other thing the traffic committee did note is probably one of the bigger problems we're seeing still is unmarked intersections. But we feel that a majority of that, for better or for worse, is undereducated and uneducated drivers about how you approach an unmarked intersection with other traffic coming. And how you guys navigate yielding to the person to the right and things like that. And we're not re-upped in that, so maybe we lose it over time. And the other thing is how much is it pressed with less and less classes for driver's education and things like that, how much of that is being picked up by younger drivers. And so we had the traffic committee elements that we did get to discuss quickly, that was one of them, and that's one of our bigger issues. We have some intersections where, by perception or otherwise, people sometimes think some of those unmarked intersections, I like to call them colloquial stop signs. People just know I'm gonna stop if anybody's coming through here, because they're not going to, even though this is unmarked. And so, those tend to be a little bit of a bigger issue, but.
And some of us have parents who yield to everybody, everywhere, every time. And I don't know how you legislate that.
It's friendly. It's a wave at them.
What are you talking about?
Nobody.
Well, I'd like to introduce the resolution 2025-1 to add those stop signs at Hillcrest. And then that way, we'll take the stop signs out at Moffett and Seward Street.
The resolution has been introduced and is designated as resolution number 2025-1. Would anyone like to move that this resolution be passed and adopted?
I so move.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Francis Scotto, Kaler, Tanya Coltrman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 8-0.
Alright, thank you. Item number 2, consideration of a change order number 1 to the construction contract with K2 Construction Incorporated for the 6th Street, Ash to Lincoln Street Water Main Replacement Project in the amount of $368,545.95. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much, and good evening. So this is a change order that is a coalition of 6 individual work orders that were approved by the city for the water main project. This project was just a few weeks in advance of the state's highway project. And while the state had identified utility conflicts well in the first half of the project, which effectively is Ash Street up to about Seward Street, it does seem like they were less careful, the remainder of the project from Seward Street north to North Avenue. So we did have a number of surprises in that range, and so the separate work orders, the first work order involves some unknown conflicts at the intersection of the two highways. In the end, there was no cost to that work order for the additional work that had to be done. Work order number 2 was effectively in this area here between Highway 34 and Jackson, was a number of items that we took advantage of modifying just for the long-term benefit to ratepayers and have a more robust system. Work order 3 is the large conflict that was identified by Black Hills Energy on our behalf at Hillcrest and 6th Street and the highway. And we had to take a substantial amount of pipe, drop it a number of feet at that intersection. Then we also had to abandon the second main on the south side of Hillcrest from 5th to 6th Street. So that was a substantial amount of work. It was done in a very short period of time. Work order number 4 was another conflict at North Avenue and the highway. And so these were conflicts that were unidentified through any of the design processes until actually during construction. They were identified. Work order 5 and 6 are really minor items that we brought up. There was a little bit of modification. Work order 5 with hydrants, and then work order 6 was a yard hydrant for the benefit of watering at the library, so where we had the hand stamps. So we're converting that grassy area, it didn't grow grass very well, converting that into a planting area, just like on the west side of the library parking lot. And the Parks and Recs crew in the spring will haul in topsoil and mulch and plant that area and be able to water that effectively. So with that, the total sum of these 6 work orders, the change order is $368,545.95. It would boost the approved amount contract price to $1,975,789. However, there was a lot of design work in that project that was not executed, temporary pavement primarily. And because these two projects dovetailed very closely, we didn't have to restore pavement for the interim, the gap between the two projects. Essentially, the two projects ran concurrently and there was no gap whatsoever. Our project was just slightly in advance. So I do believe the expected cost will be under the original contract price of $1,607,000. So we have an estimated total to completion at this point, $1,598,991. And so along with the change order, there's 2 memos presented, one by Schemmer, and a second one that I authored that go into some detail on these change orders and the expected completion amount of just under $1.6 million. So with that, I can ask for your approval. You can answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions or comments from the council? Yes, Matt?
I know, Mike, that, when these were identified and you got a hold of K2, getting them back in time, the timing is, they got right back to us and stuff, and got right on the job, and there were comments at the time that you were really pleased that you could get a hold of them, they would come back, and they didn't go off to another project, and there would be delays. Did that cause any kind of a cost increase, or was it similar to what their costs for labor and their costs for material were similar to what they had done on the whole project?
The vast majority of the costs were, they used bid prices, they held their bid price wherever they could. There was a mobilization fee in there, I believe the amount was $25,000. And so that amount is kind of the amount of money that they took to remobilize, bring everything back effectively. So you're paying for a second mobilization, demobilization. And the contractors have a true cost in terms of not just the physical work on site, bringing everything here and then disbanding again, but essentially reworking your work crews, right, across the state, and fitting this project in, so. You know, relative to the total change order amount, we consider that amount relatively small. They did not then, when we did the conflict at North Avenue and the highway, they did not charge us a similar remobilization for that. And so it was just a little bit easier at that time, much smaller change order, or work order for that, that conflict, much smaller conflict it was. And so it required less work. But effectively, the vast, you know, 90% plus was the bid prices for these quantities. So this contract was a contract on unit pricing, and so it allowed flexibility. If you need more pavement, you have that bid price, and you just pay them that agreed upon set amount for that larger amount. Same with the amount of water main as well. So, and one of the advantages of allowing us, we didn't have to do the temporary pavement, was we were able to bore quite a bit more. And so this was a project where a substantial amount was open trench on the project, and we didn't open trench, very, very little. And so, in fact, Fastmark, that would have been probably 8 weeks where they wouldn't have had access to the highway at all. They would have had to come through 7th Street and Jackson, and they wouldn't have had Bradford as well. So would have been very difficult for the businesses along Highway 15, and because we were able to bore it, we got a very good bore price, we were able to trade off costs, and we were able to accomplish that. I think in the end, it resulted in a lot less impact to residents, businesses in the city, and still allowed us to move forward on the project, so.
Thanks, Mike. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor of Francis Scott O'Taylor, Tanya Spokane, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, Need 0.
All right, item 3, consideration of an amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement with HDR Engineering Incorporated for the final design of the interior drainage and pump station improvements project in the amount of $41,725. Welcome back, Mike.
Thank you very much. So the city engaged HDR almost 2 years ago for design of a new levee pump station. It's at the south end of 10th Street. Right now it has 3 pumps, built 38 years ago. Metal building, it's really reached the end of its expected life, hanging on. So with the funding that we receive from FEMA and NEMA, we embarked on the design of a new levee pump station. This is tied with the certification for the levee, the recertification for that levee. And so we have a new pump station design. The initial design that reached 60% was based upon a previous consultant that the city had engaged, JEO, for 51 CFS. It's around 22,000 gallons a minute. It's a lot of water to pump. And so a lot of levees across the United States have huge pumps that when it rains heavily and water collects, would be on the inland side of the levee. It needs to be pumped over the levee into the floodplain. And so that cost came in at $9.9 million. And in the 38 years we've had this existing levee pump station, we haven't ever pumped. The capacity of the station is much lower. Haven't ever needed to pump that much water. And so what this amendment to the contract is to allow us to look at an alternative, a smaller pump station. This will have 2 5,000 gallon minute pumps total for 10,000. Will not have a redundant pump. So if one pump is out of service, you're effectively at 5,000, not 10,000. But we think with the and the total cost is expected to be around $4 million instead of $9.9 million. So we think it's far more affordable. We think it's better sized as well. And so with this amendment, it will allow HDR to approach, design, final design for that modified pump station. smaller amount of pumping, but at 4 million, I think it's appropriately sized and affordable. I think the city had been qualified for 75% funding from FEMA through NEMA, and so that 4 million would roughly be, if we were to reapply and get that funding, that station would cost the city $1 million. So instead of 2.5 million.
Some of the other elements is right now, as we've talked about before, that some of you have been involved in, the pump station right now is manually operated. Somebody from the street department literally gets up in the middle of the night when they think we're having a high storm level system and goes down there and verifies the water level is so high, turn on the pumps, hopefully they turn on, and then we're off and running. And then we have to also stay and ensure that they keep going to reduce inland flood water. This system will be automated in specific ways, and we've discussed having a SCADA system and things like that and connections. And so, while we'll probably still end up ultimately having somebody go down there, because we're talking about inland flooding, the system will kick on sooner than a manual one could, and we'll go at a very set elevation and things like that, and then kick itself on and get going, so we can be ahead of it. Just in case there's ever human error, we have that other backup. But and that's kind of been the plan since the beginning, to replace that one. But once we get through that, the levy accreditation process can move on. That involves some work that we'll do up around Hughes Brothers at the stop logs, and then there's just a few identified areas that are low on the levee top, and so they'll fill those in and resurface them, and that's essentially it. Those are the three main elements that are missing out for accreditation.
All right, thank you, Mike. Any other questions or comments from the council? Otherwise, we'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
The motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor of Francis, Scott, Kaler, Tanya, Colton, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 8-0.
All right, item 4, consideration of an agreement with the Schindler Associates for surveying services at the downtown water tower site for a fee not to exceed $20,000. Welcome back, Mike.
Thank you very much. This contract here is for, and I see the lump sum fee of $5,000 in fees number A. So I think the expected cost of the survey work should be limited to $5,000, right, is what, even if the agreement allows us to go up to 10, that's probably for some overage. But essentially we have 2 cell phone providers that are on a current old tower, AT&T and US Cellular, and they do pay us monthly for use of the tower for their antenna. And so with the new tower going up, we have to reach, in one case it'll be an amendment to the existing agreement, and in the second case it'll be a brand new agreement on the new tower, just 2 different approaches. They have some space that we allocated, 12 feet by 24 feet for each, inside that the site for the water tower itself, just to the east of it, a little west of the street shop here. They will have legal agreements that will define specifically their 12 by 24 foot area that's written into the agreement that we will bring to council within the next 6 months for approval and for signature on that new. And so this purpose is to survey that so everybody has an agreed upon set of boundaries in that legal each of those 2 legal documents. We used Schemmer specifically because they did survey the Bradford Street project. So they have control points close by, benchmarks that they are aware of, and they have into their survey equipment saved already. And so it's rather efficient to use a survey that's been in that area rather than getting a brand new surveyor that has to find those benchmarks, set up new control points, and then survey the same 2 areas. So with that, ask for permission for approval of this agreement with the Schemmer Associates.
And Mike, we're good with the $20,000?
Pardon me now?
So item 4 talks about not to exceed 20,000.
Do I have,
We estimate it's gonna be 5,
I think that's just
Basic.
typographical error.
yeah, basic
So
services.
not to exceed 5. Okay, I just wanna make sure the motion's correct. Okay, is that right, Mike?
correct, so the $20,000 amount is under the limitation of liability in the agreement, and is not in the, under fees, it lists 5,000, so. So the limitation of liability is for $20,000, and the amount for the contract is 5,000. And I do apologize, that's undoubtedly how there was a misprint, being two numbers in that same agreement printed.
Okay, I just wanna make it clear for the
Yeah.
motion, so the not to exceed amount would be $5,000.
$5,000
Okay.
is written here.
I move to approve.
Second.
The motion and a second, any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Francis Scotto, Kaler, Tanya Coulterman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 8-0.
Alright, thank you. Item 5, consideration of an amendment number 2 to the professional services agreement with Schemmer Associates for the Worthman Boulevard Extension Project in the amount of $33,301. Mike,
Thank you. There's another typo.
okay?
This is amendment number 4 to this agreement. So we
Okay.
have 3 previous amendments to this contract. And so this is the Worthman Boulevard, so we have amendment number 1, we did some additional survey work on a larger area. Amendment number 2 was for specifically Project Move Dairy. It was for the Alpha survey that they required for us to sell them those 2 parcels, and then that was also to replat the rail campus. That was the second edition, which was recently completed. That was amendment 2. Then amendment 3 was to add utilities beyond the road and storm sewer. We added water main and sanitary to the project, as well as extending Pine Street South and additional storm sewer, and that was to accommodate Plum Creek Seed, which is a facility nearing completion at the southwest corner of Worthman and Pine Street. So this here, this is extending the water main from the western edge of the Worthman Boulevard extension, adjacent to the western side of the rail campus, up the western property boundary to the northwest corner of the rail campus, and then it would be bored under Walker Road and bored under the railroad and tie into the 14-inch main that we have, runs east and west on the north side of BNSF.
And they're gonna approve, Burlington's gonna approve that?
Well, we have the proposal here to split the project into 2 plan sets, and we would separate the board portion into a separate one so that we could engage BNSF separately. We could end the first project just south of Walker Road, if there are difficulties with that.
We ran into that problem on that 80 building that Burlington wouldn't allow. When we went that new main, when we broke that main by the highway.
So there is, we do have currently 2 sanitary sewer crossings in that area. So I don't want to preclude discussions with BNSF, right? However, there is, I believe, in that location, that is a county-owned parcel that's leased to BNSF. So it gets more complicated. But I would not anticipate that this would be a problem any different than that sanitary connection was. Potentially, yes. With the BNSF, it's really somewhat of an unknown. So specifically, we divided this up, creating 2 plan sets so that if there was a difficulty with that board portion of the railroad, we could suspend that, hopefully temporarily. And temporary could be a number of years if necessary, but that's our tackling. Of course, this is for overall development. We don't want to leave a 2,000-foot dead-end main that goes out Worthman Boulevard and ends. Causes our water utility some problems. They have to, I think, quadruple the frequency of flushing that main. And so what we wanna do is loop that, and the looping allows for better fire flow, better water pressure to everybody, especially a large user in the rail campus such as dairy would be, and pet source as well. And so we would certainly wanna see that loop ultimately, installed. So with that, the amendment here for those two additional plan sets is $33,301. So we ask for approval on that amendment.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions or comments from the council?
I'll move to approve.
Motion is second. Please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor of Francis Scott, Taylor, Tanya, Colton, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 8-0.
Alright, item 6, consideration of system impact study agreement with Nebraska Public Power District for electric transmission requirements related to project move/dairy processing. Greg.
Yes, pursuant to bringing the dairy project online, one of the new requirements, but this one's a technical requirement for anywhere currently in the NPPD system, is they're the transmission provider, wholesale provider to the city of Seward, Norris Public Power, and also Milford as a NPPD wholesale customer. And so that feeds out of our transmission substation, kind of over on Highway 15 north of Walmart. That's reaching its capacity, and so part of their study is upgrading and bringing in large projects. You want to check on every large project that it's within the guidelines of your current transmission system. So NPPD will perform this one. It has an initial down payment of $15,000. That will be reimbursed by the dairy project to the city. If the actual cost, you'll be billed ultimately for your actual cost. So if it goes under, you're under. If it goes over, you pay the difference and make sure you get caught up. One of the things they will determine as part of this is should any other elements of regulatory transmission or study be required by the Southwest Power Pool. And the Southwest Power Pool is massive. It stretches from Texas all the way up to the northern boundary, I believe, of North Dakota. It's kind of our power region and transmission that's shared through the system. Southwest Power Pool is the regulatory element that kind of oversees that system to ensure it's running properly, sets rates for the back and forth transmission of power, requests power generators to turn on and off during certain power situations, things like that. And so we'll also identify in this, through this study, if a Southwest Power Pool study is, and transmission study is also required. Likely not, but we don't know. So it's part of the process. And so this will kick off the dairy project. I know we've been working and in consideration with NPPD about upgrading our substation here in Seward County, and that's kind of down the line. They are going to do some change outs here in the direct future, but a large scale upgrade is anticipated down the line. I'm guessing closer to 28, 29. Looking to double the capacity in Seward County out of that substation. And so, but in the short term, they're going to replace new units that are going to bring up the nameplate value to its max load rather than the aged units that have a reduced capacity in them now. So we'll send this off, see what it says, and then once we get that back, I think we're kind of off and running on the NPPD side, as long as there's nothing identified in there to build our substation and get going with the dairy project. And they'll do their thing in the background, and we'll be good there. But anything else beyond that will have to come on for a large load, probably a few megawatts, a megawatt and above. We'll need that upgrade that is anticipated in 29. So.
Any questions or comments for Greg? Otherwise, we entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor of Francis Scott, Taylor, Tanya, Colton, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 8-0.
Alright, item 7, authorization for mayor to sign all documents related to the City of Seward Certificate of Compliance and 2025 Maintenance Agreement with the Nebraska Department of Transportation. Greg.
Yep, this is just our maintenance requirements for the portion of the highway that runs through the city. And so, kinda nothing really changes. We're required for surface maintenance and snow removal. And so the amounts are set forth, in the agreement, and we recertify this each year.
Any questions or comments for Greg?
Second.
A motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Francis Dow, Kaler, Tanya Copeland, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Morgan, 8-0.
Alright, item 8, update on the wellness center. Welcome, Joel.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. A little bit more done in the locker room area. That's where most of it has been seen right now. Gym is still on hold, but that company H2I will be back next week to start the process of sanding and then sealing, painting, and finishing the gym floor and the track. And that will be about a 3 to 4 week process when they come back next week. And so when that is done, then the gym floor and track will be finished whenever that gets done in February. So those are the next steps for that. Fitness and studio, they're working on finishing, and the next step in that will be hallway flooring in the next week or so. We're still waiting to find out when the rest of the equipment will come, sometime late January, early February, but the flooring will be put down in that hallway there. Pool area, hydro test went well. They're in the process of installing pool equipment in the mechanical room. That will probably be a 4-week process. And so that's a long process there. As I said to begin with, the biggest thing that is noticeable lately is in the locker room area, where I was able to see today, they did get all the tile and paint done. That's been done for about a week in the locker room, but they did get the flooring down. So they got the floor and kind of the gravel or the grip in the flooring that they put down. It looked good today, so that was a good step. Site superintendent and I were both satisfied with that. Thought it looked very good. The next 2 weeks, lockers will show up and be installed in both the locker rooms and in the hallway outside of the fitness center. So, and just continue on some finishes. I did get word today that our exterior sign is nearing completion, so we can start kind of gearing up for that. And I was told that there's really nothing that we need to avoid on site as far as any installation, so we'll get that set up and get that out there. That will go in the main entryway. It's not going to be anything, we like the way it looks. It'll just be a simple Seward Wellness Center sign, but that will be going up. That's the next steps for the outside part. So with that, today was the end of our early bird membership special, and so I was getting a lot of interest the last couple days. And when I left the office, I think there's probably been a few more as of tonight, but just to give you a little update where we're at. There were 31 family memberships total. That was 22 yearly and 9 monthly. And then there are 16 that did couples, either senior couple or adult couple, and those were split. Sorry, that should be 24 couples. 15 yearly and 9 monthly for that, and then the individuals, and that could be made up of youth, seniors, adult memberships. There were 19 total, and that's again split up between yearly and monthly, pretty even. And then there was one single parent family that is signed up for a monthly. And so just give you a little bit where we're at for a total of 183 people. So obviously it's just a start, but happy with the way it started, because I know a lot of people will wait until they've seen it, been in it, or they maybe have a membership somewhere else that they're waiting to run out, or we're working on through business some corporate discounts, things like that. But happy with where things are at so far, getting people used to signing up, getting their accounts set up, and going through that process. So, any questions?
The only other thing I would add, and Joel didn't mention it, is he also has a real front door now.
Yes.
That was, it was very off-putting not going through a giant plywood
There are
facade the other
glass-
day.
Glass doors, nice ones, and so our heating bill will go down. That it's not wooden doors.
Any
Yeah,
other
they look nice.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, thank you, Joel. Next we'll go to city administrator's report.
Administrator's report's in there, kind of cleaning up stuff that's kind of picked up. We've had some interest, a lot of follow-up on some TIF items that we're trying to get closed out. A lot of LB 840 kind of stuff percolating and applications coming in and stuff, so we're gonna be working on that. Continue to work with the dairy project and move that forward along with staff. And so, just kind of all those end of the year things and then clean up. Obviously, we were off for the holidays as well. I can answer any questions you have.
Any questions or comments? We're good.
Move to approve report.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Francis Scott, Taylor, Thomas, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Ward, need 0.
Are any future requests for council agenda items or administrative action? Going once. Alright, next we'll go on to announcement of upcoming events. Welcome, Jonathan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. A few things to make you aware of. Tuesday, January 21st, we're working with leaders from across our county to relaunch our Seward County Young Professionals Group. 6:30, we're going to be at Seward Memorial Library. We're excited to actually host the Connecting Young Nebraskans group. That's our statewide young professionals group here in Seward later in September. And so we're relaunching our local group to help support and welcome young professionals from across the state. In the meantime, then the next day, January 22nd, will be our ambassador calls. We're actually moving our ambassador calls to the fourth Wednesday of every month based on demand from our ambassadors to be more consistent on those. That day, we have currently scheduled Burns Body Shop, 1 o'clock, their expansion, which we're really grateful for Steve and his team making that investment in our community. We're excited to cut the ribbon there. 1 o'clock with some others to be determined that afternoon. And then Monday, January 27th, please mark your calendars, will be our annual awards banquet. We celebrate the accomplishments of local leaders, local businesses from across the county. We'd welcome you to join us at Harvest Hall that evening. We'll have drinks, dinner, and the awards throughout the event. Tickets are on sale currently at our office, and you can also get those online. Let's see, and then Friday, February 14th, will be a lunch and learn discussing the topic of business succession planning, starting at 11:30 at Memorial Library. We have a lot more people asking about that topic, and so we're wanting to be attentive to that here within the business community. And then also Monday, February 17th, will be our Chamber Board quarterly meeting here in Seward. So with that, that's all I have. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Jonathan. And next we have a strategy session.
I move that the city council go into closed session with the mayor, city administrator, city clerk, Jonathan Fink, and the city attorney for the protection of the public interest and discuss real estate interests and provide the city attorney with negotiating guidance for a period not to exceed 30 minutes.
All right, we have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please register your votes. Please display the votes.
Voting in favor, Francis Gatto, Taylor, Tanya, Coltman, Miller, Singleton, Streisand, Ward, need 0.
All right, the council has voted to go into closed session at 7:50 PM for the protection of the public interest, to discuss real estate interests, and to provide the city attorney with negotiating guidance. No formal action will be taken. We are in closed session.